The ability to assemble and disassemble a drone is fundamental to its repair and maintenance process. To assemble or disassemble a drone, you will need the following tools: screwdriver set with Phillips screwdriver, plastic pry tools, tweezers, glue gun, soldering iron, magnetic mat to safely keep the screws. The drone is a complex device that has many parts and screws, so keep a track of each part and screw step by step. This will make your task much easier and efficient. Disassembling the drone. When disassembling, carefully remove the drone's components following the manufacturer's guidelines or technical manuals. Pay close attention to connectors and delicate wires to avoid accidental damage. Here is a general step-by-step guide to disassemble a drone. Preparation. Find a clean, well-lit workspace with enough room to work comfortably. Gather the necessary tools such as screwdrivers, preferably a set with various sizes, pliers, tweezers, and a small container for organizing screws and small parts. Ensure you have the user manual or any documentation related to your specific drone model for reference. Power off. Ensure the drone is turned off and remove any batteries to prevent accidental power-ups during disassembly. Remove propellers. Carefully unscrew and remove all propellers from each motor. Most propellers can be removed by rotating them counterclockwise. Place the removed propellers aside, keeping them in a safe location to avoid damage. Access the battery compartment. If your drone has a removable battery, locate the battery compartment. This is typically located on the underside of the drone. Depending on your drone model, you may need to slide or unclip a cover to access the battery compartment. Follow the instructions in the user manual to remove the battery safely. Remove the gimbal and camera, if applicable. If your drone has a gimbal and camera assembly, it is usually attached to the main body of the drone. Carefully examine the gimbal and camera assembly for any cables or connectors that are attached to the drone's body. Disconnect any cables or connectors, ensuring you release any locking mechanisms gently. Once disconnected, locate the screws or fasteners that hold the gimbal and camera assembly to the drone. Using the appropriate screwdriver, carefully remove these screws and set them aside in a safe place. Gently lift and remove the gimbal and camera assembly from the drone, setting it aside. Remove the outer shell. Look for screws or clips securing the outer shell of the drone. These are typically located along the edges and may be hidden under rubber covers or stickers. Use the appropriate tools, such as screwdrivers or pry tools, to remove the screws or unclip the shell. Be cautious not to damage any cables or delicate components inside. Slowly separate the outer shell from the drone, taking note of any hidden screws or connectors that may still be attached. If you encounter resistance while separating the shell, double-check for any overlooked screws or clips. Disconnect internal components. Once you have removed the outer shell, you will gain access to the internal components of the drone. Take a moment to identify the various components such as flight controllers, motors, electronic boards, and wiring. Begin by disconnecting any cables or connectors attaching these components to the main circuit board or flight controller. Use caution when disconnecting cables to avoid pulling or damaging them. Some connectors may require gentle prying or squeezing to release. Remove main circuit board and flight controller. Locate the main circuit board or flight controller, which is typically the central control unit of the drone. Carefully remove any screws or connectors securing it to the frame or other components. Keep track of the screws associated with the circuit board or flight controller, as they may differ from other screws used in the drone's assembly. Gently lift the board or flight controller out of its position, ensuring you don't strain any cables or delicate parts. Disassemble remaining components. With the main circuit board or flight controller removed, you can proceed to disassemble any remaining components that are easily detachable. This may include motors, sensors, additional circuit boards, or any other components specific to your drone model. Take note of any screws or connectors associated with each component and keep them organized in the small container you prepared earlier. Document and keep track of parts. As you disassemble the drone, consider taking pictures or notes to document the disassembly process. This can be helpful when reassembling the drone later. Keep all the removed components, screws, and small parts together in a safe place, preferably in separate containers or bags to avoid confusion or loss. Congratulations on successfully disassembling your drone. While the provided instructions give a general overview, they may not be enough for a professional drone technician. Assembling the drone. When assembling, reverse the disassembly process. Ensure each component is securely reconnected and aligned correctly. Refer to the manuals for precise instructions to ensure proper installation and avoid any issues. Here is a general step-by-step guide to assemble a drone. Gather all the components, collect all the necessary components and parts required to assemble the drone, including the frame, motors, propellers, flight controller, electronic speed controllers, ESCs, power distribution board, PDB, receiver, battery, sensors, and any additional accessories or modules. Prepare the frame. Attach the arms to the main frame according to the manufacturer's instructions. Use screws or other fasteners provided with the kit to secure them in place. Ensure the frame is stable and all connections are tight. Mount the motors. Attach the motors to each arm of the frame using the screws provided. Ensure the motors are correctly aligned and securely fastened. Connect the motor wires. Each motor should have 3 wires typically color-coded as blue, yellow, and black. Connect the motor wires to the corresponding electronic speed controllers (ESCs) following the standard motor wire color configuration. For example, connect the blue wire from the motor to the blue wire on the escape, the yellow wire to the yellow wire, and the black wire to the black wire. Repeat this process for all the motors. Secure the motor wires. Use zip ties or wire clips to secure and organize the motor wires along the arms of the drone. This helps prevent tangling or interference with other components during flight. Install the flight controller. Mount the flight controller board in the designated location on the drone frame. Secure it using screws or other fasteners provided. Connect the ESCs to the flight controller following the manufacturer's instructions. Typically, this involves plugging the escape signal wires into the corresponding motor output ports on the flight controller. Attach the propellers. Carefully attach the propellers to the motor shafts. Ensure that the propellers are securely fastened and properly oriented clockwise or counterclockwise based on the designated motor. Install the sensors. Identify the specific sensors required for your drone, such as GPS, accelerometer, gyroscope, or obstacle avoidance sensors. Follow the manufacturer's instructions to mount and connect the sensors to the appropriate ports on the flight controller. Pay attention to proper orientation and calibration requirements for each sensor. Install the battery. Depending on the drone model, the battery may be attached underneath the frame or in a specific battery compartment. Connect the battery to the power distribution board (PDB) or flight controller following the correct polarity and secure it in place using straps or other fastening methods provided. Check the wiring. Carefully inspect all the wiring connections, including those for motors and sensors, to ensure they are properly connected and secure. Double-check the connections between the flight controller, ESCs, receiver, sensors, and other components. Calibrate the flight controller. Follow the instructions provided by the manufacturer to calibrate the flight controller. This typically involves placing the drone on a level surface and initiating the calibration process using a computer or controller. Test the drone. Before flying, conduct thorough pre-flight checks. Ensure all the motors spin in the correct direction and respond to throttle input. Verify that the remote control is properly connected and the drone is responding to commands. Check for any abnormal vibrations, loose components, and ensure the sensors are functioning correctly.